welcome back to the Asterisk Podcast, where I'm your host, April Biondolillo. And today on the show, we have a very good friend of mine. Her name is Ashlee. And fun fact is that we used to be roommates back on the west side of Washington. Ashlee, I literally was thinking about this the other day I remember coming into the apartment we had never met, and we just literally sat on the couch for hours, and I was like, yeah, I think I can live with this girl. I think it'll be great. So I am so excited to have her here. For those of you who don't know her, Ashlee is a worship pastor at Red Hills Church in Newberg, Oregon. She has been married for 4 years to her best friend, Adam. She is a photographer, videographer, and graphic designer. She is passionate about resourcing, platforming, and equipping creatives, which is why she founded Creative Tides Ministry, which curates accessible resources and community building events taught by local experts for church worship and tech teams, fellow worship pastors, and individual creatives in the community in general to improve their craft or team building skills and network with other creatives or churches. She is an avid Disney fan. Yes, she is, and I can attest to that. And religious Gilmore Girls. Come on, we love Gilmore Girls watchers. And a typical coffee addicted millennial. I love that. That's amazing. She's like coffee in hand. Ashlee, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm excited. Yeah, actually, you also should have put on here. Do you still do your puzzles as frequent as you do?
I love a good puzzle. I have not done one in a long time because we have
Okay,
a one-year-old golden retriever who
fair.
is very tall and would eat the pieces. But yes, the combo of fall, a candle,
Yeah.
puzzle, Gilmore Girls, and coffee, that's my sweet spot.
I feel like, yeah, that sums you up pretty well. I remember walking in and I'd see our coffee table with a puzzle on it, like a different one every time. It's like, this is wild. And you don't keep them. You just like undo it, put it back in the box.
Yes, because I'll redo puzzles.
That's wild.
And
I was
they
like,
usually are Disney themed, like especially the Thomas Kincaid Disney ones. Those are my favorite.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I am not a puzzle person, but I admire the hard work and diligence. I like doing the corners, the edges. That's about it. Then someone else crazy can go in and do the middle. But
I
I
do it backwards. I start
oh,
middle or whatever part of the picture that's like the most obvious, and then I'll eventually fill it in, which drives my mother crazy because she loves puzzles, but she's like has to do the full outline border first and then do the middle. And I'm like, no, I just
hmm,
want to do the parts that I see because that's like more
okay.
instantaneously rewarding.
She's like, I need that hard part done. That's crazy. I didn't know that. You're wild, but makes sense. Fits in perfectly. She's like, okay. Well, hey, go ahead and why don't you share with the listeners just a little bit about your story and when you first started following Jesus?
Yeah. So I am a pastor's kid, and I was a pastor's kid in the womb and am still a pastor's kid today. So my dad did worship ministry for 25 years, and then he's now a lead pastor. So grew up in the church and fell in love with it at an early age. You know, we were first ones there, turn on all the lights, last ones to leave, lock everything up, and
Yeah.
just fell in love with it at an early age. And my sister and I had a really great experience with the church and just our family dynamic. My parents were good about, you know, like protecting days off and prioritizing
Yeah.
family time, but still instilling the values of following the Lord and serving the local church. And so we had a great experience with it. And then when I was a freshman in high school, I felt the Lord's call at a winter youth summer, and I was just
Yes.
down worshiping post service,
Mm,
and I was actually praying for something really specific, and I had a leader come alongside, and she was like, "Hey, it's great that you're praying for this. Like, keep praying for this thing, but maybe you're too focused on the thing." And she said, "I
mm,
would just encourage you to worship and just worship the Lord for who He is." And I was
wow.
really really shy, and so I was like, "Well." Okay, but there's other people around, like, I don't wanna just worship and pray down here and, like, have other people hear me, and, being shy and my dad being in worship ministry, like, I had never wanted to sing or, like, worship at church because 'cause I'm like,
Mm.
"He's gonna see me from the stage, and then we're gonna have to talk about it at home, and that's gonna be awkward." So, anyways, I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna go for it and try," and, So I started to worship and pray, and then this was like a, altar moment after the service, so the room had kind of filtered out, but there were several of us still down there, and I remember like hearing this voice like singing and worshiping, and I was like starting to get annoyed because I'm like, we're trying to pray, and like, who is this person that's like singing? Like, what gives them the right to just like be singing so loudly? And then I realized that it was my own voice. And
That's
it was
awesome.
almost like one of those almost out of body experiences where,
Wow.
like, I hadn't elevated my voice. I really feel like it was the Holy Spirit, like, ministering through me, because in that
Mm,
moment, it was sort of like I led people in worship who were still there. And
wow.
so anyway, long story short, I had 3 different people approach me afterwards and say, "Hey, have you ever thought about worship ministry?" And then through processing that over the camp, I felt like that's what I was supposed to do. And so
Wow.
I went home and sat my parents down at our kitchen table, and I was like, I am going to just blow their minds. Like, they have no idea. They're never going to expect this. And so I shared
Mm,
this, told them, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. And my parents said, well, when you were 5, there was a
mm,
prophetic word over your life that, a couple different things, like things about my personality and how I would think and process, but they said the primary thing was that you would be a worship leader, and
wow.
my parents said, "We waited to tell you until you felt the call for yourself,
Wow.
because we didn't
Mm,
want you to feel pressured into anything." And so, I'm really grateful that they waited to share that, because
yeah.
I think in hindsight, I would have gone back and questioned that moment of, I
Yeah.
was young, I was at camp. Was this just sort of like a camp high, like an emotional thing? So to have the Lord so clearly confirm it, I just was like, okay, this is what I'm doing, and went full force. And it's what I studied in college, and I've interned at a few churches, and now I'm worship pastor. And so that's just kind of been my
Wow.
journey of, Lord, I'm just going to pursue this full on. And what I think that looks like is becoming a worship pastor. And so
Mm,
my background was in the Assemblies of God denomination. So I got ordained as a minister there. My current church is a Foursquare church. And so I'm now licensed with Foursquare, and just kind of been one of those things where I'm like, God, you redirect me if this isn't what you want,
yeah.
or add to if there's something else you want me to do. But that's really the pivotal moment of how I got to where I am today. So,
Wow, that's such a cool story. I feel like I've heard that before, but I forgot, and now I just relived it all again, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's really cool." I love it. I was telling Ashley before we got on this podcast, I had a Facebook memory pop up, and I got to go with her, to a young adults ministry. She led worship, and she's incredible. You also sang at our wedding, which was also an amazing moment. She is definitely in her sweet spot. It is so fun getting to see you walk that out. So, you had a growing up, you've walked through a couple of both physical challenges like diabetes and mental health struggles like depression. How have those experiences shaped your dependence on God and your view of healing in the waiting?
mm. Yeah, so I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 11. And so if you don't know, type 1 is, there's 2 types of diabetes. Type 2 is normally, it's kind of onset sometimes later in life when you're elderly, or if you're overweight, that type of thing. And that type 2 can be treated and almost reversed to where you can improve it to maybe not have to take medication anymore. Versus type 1 is what's known as juvenile diabetes, because you typically get it when you're a child. And it's kind of this like dormant gene that you have since birth. And
Mm,
sometimes, typically, it's like triggered by some type of traumatic event. So for me, when I was 10, my grandfather passed suddenly from a heart attack. And that was the first like death that I had really experienced, and first
mm,
death in our family. And it was very sudden and abrupt. He was very young. And so just seeing our family process that, and in particular, my mom just grieve and process the loss of her dad.
mm,
It was about almost exactly a year later that I was diagnosed.
wow.
So I was 11, so I was old enough to know this is a big deal and this is going to change my life, but I was still, somewhat young and naive to not understand the full scope of what it meant. But type
Yeah.
1 is chronic. And so my body does not produce insulin, which is essential to live. And so I have to self inject insulin with any meal that I have, or I have to monitor blood sugars and make sure that that stays in a healthy range. And so it's one of those chronic diseases where it's just on my mind all the time. I just have to
Mm.
think about, okay, what's going on in my body? What do I need? But externally, a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
It's not really something that you can see, and it's not something that maybe you understand what it feels like unless you have that or a
Yeah.
similar chronic disease, or it's an autoimmune disease. And so I just have struggled physically with a lot of just chronic fatigue because of it. And I've had other like health issues, digestive
Yeah.
health and that kind of thing. And it just has been one of those things where it's like sometimes it feels all consuming. And
Mm.
when I was a teenager, especially, it was like you're already going through puberty and feeling like awkward and trying to
Yeah.
come into your own and figure out who you are. And so to have this on top of it, like I never wanted to be treated differently, but
Yeah.
I would, if I went to slumber parties or whatever, like understandably so, the moms would be like, okay, well, what can you eat? And like, what do I need to do? And what if this happens? And
Mm.
it was hard to not feel like a burden. Um,
Wow.
and just to not feel different. And so, um, and then just with the nature of it being chronic and, being diagnosed at such a young age, it's like this is the rest of my life. And I
Mm.
really struggled physically with some kind of side issues when I was in my 20s. And I just hit a low point where it was like, physically, this is supposed to be the peak of my
Mm.
life in my 20s. This is the prime. And I just felt miserable. Or this was around the
Mm.
time that we lived together. I just
Yeah.
felt miserable all the time. And I was like, if this is the prime of my life, like, how am I going to feel when I am in my 50s, 60s, 70s, And so,
Wow.
because of that, I have struggled with depression and a lot of discouragement of, a doctor tells you there is no cure and here are the resources just to
Mm.
manage it, but this is never going away. Like
Yeah.
that, that's been really hard to wrap my head around. And to be honest, have really struggled in the church when if there's services focused around healing, if there are times where
Mm.
a
Yeah.
pastor might facilitate, like, we're going to intervene and just pray for divine, miraculous healing. And I've gone to an altar and had people pray over me. And I've unfortunately, and I think this maybe happens more often than it should, unfortunately, I had, well intended people say, okay, we're going to pray. Do you feel different? We're going to pray again. Okay, we're going to believe that you are
Mm.
healed. Tell your doctors you don't need your medicine
Wow.
anymore. We're just going to stand in faith. And I'm like, I can't
Wow.
do that. Like, literally, if I don't have insulin in my system, my all my organs will shut down and I will die. Not to be dramatic, but I
Yeah.
will die
But yeah.
probably around 24 hours. And so that's been a really hard tension to navigate of I am, I've followed Jesus. I committed my life to him when I was 6 years old. I had that encounter when I was a freshman in high school where I just felt the Lord speak to me so clearly and call
Mm.
me into ministry. Um, and yet here I am with this chronic disease. And it's that tension of, okay, Lord, I read your scripture and I believe what it says. I believe that you are the divine healer. I believe that when Jesus performed these miracles, that it actually happened and that people
Yeah.
were raised from the dead, or they were healed of diseases that they had had for
Right.
decades, some of them. Um, so why would this be my story, and why wouldn't you heal me? And I've
Mm.
had seasons where I felt like, am I being punished for something? Is there a sin in my life that I'm blind to? Or
Mm.
is there a lesson that you want to teach me that I'm just maybe that dumb that I'm not seeing it? Um,
Yeah.
but still like navigating that tension of it's that tension of the now but the not yet,
Mm.
of okay, I believe that God is healer, yes, but I also believe the scriptures that say his timing and his ways are different than mine.
Wow.
And so I'm grateful for examples in scripture like Paul, who says he dealt with some type of thorn in the side.
Yeah.
And I love how the Bible keeps that vague because you can kind of insert your own experience
Yep.
into that. And that was something that he prayed and he asked the Lord to take away, and God never did. But we
Mm.
see that Paul continued to have this incredible ministry, including
Yeah.
writing so many of the books in the New Testament. And so it's that now and not yet of like, God, I believe that you are healer. For whatever reason, you have not healed me yet. But I also believe that when Jesus returns and we spend eternity with him in the new heaven and the new earth, that I have been promised full and complete healing. So whether or not
Yeah.
I see healing in my body this side of eternity, God is my healer. And
Mm.
in the meantime, like I've had several different seasons of waiting, this being one of them of I'm just waiting and interceding, and I've kind of taken the attitude of, okay, if this is what I have, like rather than be depressed and be so focused on what I don't have, if I'm in a season of waiting, I want to be really intentional with the season of waiting. And so I've kind of developed this like mantra almost of I want to wait well.
Yeah.
And if the season I'm in is waiting, I want to glorify you in the waiting. And
Yeah.
so
It's good.
that's where I'm at. And I've had like I said, different seasons of waiting, and some of those I've seen come to fruition and I've seen prayers answered, and other things I'm still waiting and praying.
Mm.
I have I have seen the Lord use it though, use especially the physical, well, both the physical and the mental battle that I've navigated. I've seen him incorporate that in
Mm.
with the calling of worship leading. Um, at first, for a long time, I just felt like it was this really disjointed thing. Like, okay, I want to be a worship leader. I have this chronic disease. Like that's, it just felt like a piece that didn't fit, like this kind of
Mm.
like awkward, redheaded stepchild that nobody wants. Like, how does this fit in? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I felt the Lord like zoom me out one time,
Mm.
and he showed me like how dealing with both physical pain and mental pain, it's created a sense of empathy in me because I experience things firsthand. And so
Yeah.
when I am leading worship or when I'm praying with people and they come to me and they say, "Hey, here's what I'm praying for. Here's what I'm going through." I can pretty much like even though the situation might be different, I can firsthand relate with them because it's
Yeah.
something that I'm also navigating. And so it's
Yeah.
changed how I lead worship. It's changed how I pray. It's changed how I relate with people. It's really become a predominant theme of when I'm leading worship. Like we worship God because He is faithful and because He is good,
Mm.
not because of what I feel or because of my
Mm.
circumstance. If we were to worship him based on our circumstance, our worship to him would be just
Yeah.
very wavering. And um,
No.
I mean, I know that on the daily, if not by the hour, like my mood and attitude changes. And so, um,
Mhm.
no, we worship him because of who he is and because of what he's done and also what he has promised is coming. And
So
so,
good.
yeah, that's sort of how he helped me like see, hey, I'm not for my case, like I'm not punishing you. I think maybe that was part of a lesson I did need to learn. Like
Yeah.
this can be intentional and it can be used. Um, and just kind of the everyday, like, okay, I'm gonna do my best and try to be faithful and obedient and surrender this to you. And
Absolutely.
yeah, just see what he wants to do with it.
That's awesome. I love the not now. What how did you say that? The not now yet. I now I've messed it up.
The now and not yet.
Say it again?
The now and the not yet.
Now and the not yet. That's good. I think that's so good because I think there's so many people that are gonna find themselves in any spot in their journey where waiting is a part of it, and it's how do I stand on the promises of God in the midst of getting negative reports or getting that rejection or closed door opportunity, and it's where am I gonna find myself, and I love that you've made that mission your mantra of I'm going to wait well. I'm going to glorify God in the midst of this, and I think that's really powerful, really challenging to stay disciplined in, but a really good thing to keep your eyes focused on Jesus, kind of like that picture of Peter walking on water. It's like, okay, Lord's calling me, but there's gonna be waves and winds because the enemy's also terrified of, man, if Ashley really gets this, like if continues to pursue this, the places she'll go, the people she'll impact. So the enemy sends those specific ways of distraction, or disappointment and um even just like those negative thoughts. And so just like, no, my eyes are on Jesus. I'm gonna wait well. I'm going to glorify him, and it you don't even realize, but it's doing so much in yourself and preparing you. And I think just learning as rejection is oftentimes that redirection or just your protection for your life of what he has in store. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's very impactful.
And
uh
that's not to say that it doesn't
yeah.
suck. It does.
Yeah.
It sucks. And
There are hard moments. Yeah.
I've had seasons where I've been very, very angry, and
Mm,
I've expressed that to the Lord, and it doesn't make sense. Like, and I other things I've walked through, like losing my grandma to cancer. Like,
yeah.
God, why? How is that glorifying versus if you were to heal her? Like, there are things that
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense, that I don't understand, that I would definitely have like turn out differently if I had my
Is
way.
otherwise. Yeah.
And so I just wanna, like, I wanna be clear on that too, like, there's a full range of emotions with this, and in the
Mm,
waiting, like, sometimes the waiting is I'm angry, and
yeah.
I'm frustrated, or I'm confused, or I'm disappointed. I've had so many seasons of all of that muddled together, but especially the disappointment, and I think the key is taking all of that to Him, like,
Yeah.
not holding back, not just being like, "Oh, I'm gonna, worship the Lord and be in the scripture and pray when I'm feeling good and
Yeah.
I'm grateful and happy, but then I'm gonna fully withdraw when I'm not." Like, you have to bring all of it to Him, and I
Yeah.
think
Absolutely.
that's how you wait well. It's
It's
being
good.
real and being authentic. It's not just being like your Instagram self with God, where you just
Mm,
put your best face forward and all people see on your page is the highlights. Like, it's
yep.
taking everything. Take
Yep.
your full camera roll to Him, not just your Instagram feed.
Mm. I like that. Bring the camera roll. That's good too, because I mean, oftentimes, and we know this and we hit at it a lot, but it really is that constant challenge of in the church, that real, authentic self typically gets left in the car, in the parking lot, and we come in with our masks and facades and act like everything's okay. But the church is supposed to be broken people coming together, leaning on one another. The importance of community. Like we need people to confess our sins to one another so that we can experience freedom. We need people to bear our burdens with us. We need people that are going to be the individuals that are there at the 2 a.m. phone calls when we need them. Like it's a command to love your neighbor as yourself. So it's like all these things that Jesus has commanded us to do. How do we do that if we don't have community? That's like the most important piece. But the only way we build community is truthfully when we choose to be vulnerable and real and show up. And oftentimes there's that fear of, what if I shared this part of myself? And so then we end up doing that with the Lord too. And then we're frustrated of like, man, like I don't feel the Lord or I don't see him, but it says like you're supposed to seek him with everything you have, like heart, soul, and mind. And so oftentimes it's like, have you done that? I don't think so. Then it's like, okay, you got to go again and bring everything to him. Like cry at the altar, be there, be present. That's so good.
Just read the book of Psalms and you'll see
Mm,
David's wide range of emotions. Like, that
mm,
guy for sure had to be an Enneagram 4 and needed a
Mm.
therapist. Like, he was just so up and down, but he took all of it to the Lord of,
Yeah.
"You are my protector and my defender," and then the next chapter, it's like, "Lord, crush
Yeah.
the enemies of my enemy." Like, it's like, "Whoa, dude, like,
Really
chill."
just over here. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
but take all of it to him because we see that modeled in Scripture.
Yeah, well, that's good. We're gonna kind of pivot a little bit here, but dive a little bit deeper into just the call of ministry on your life. What was like you've kind of painted a picture of like you knew worship ministry, but there was also a period of time when I actually met you where you were in ministry, but not in the capacity of maybe what you thought ministry would look like. Because when you were working at the Assemblies of God office in an administrative role. So what was that kind of like turning point of wanting to step out, really pursue that? And then we'll tackle also like as a woman in ministry, what barriers did you have to overcome walking confidently in that calling?
Yeah. Yeah, so I worked at the Northwest Ministry Network, which is the Assemblies of God kind of district office for, I believe it's Washington and Idaho. I think those two states.
Yeah.
So I was the children's ministry assistant. So we would plan things like the big kids camps and kids conferences, leader conferences, and that kind of thing. So it was a weird like I'm in ministry, but it wasn't at a local church,
Yeah.
um, and it wasn't in the lane of ministry that I wanted to work in. But it was my
Yeah.
first job out of college, and it was a great opportunity. And I approached it as this isn't my exact end goal. Like, I don't want to be here forever, but this is a really great opportunity to learn and to meet people. And that is such a I look back so fondly at that time of my life because I lived with you, but also just working there
Thank you.
was so fun. And fun fact, we lived together, but you also worked in the same building downstairs at your
Yes,
church.
so true. I forget about
So
that too.
we were
We were
together
bonding,
all the time.
literally. Yes.
Um, but yeah, that was another season of like, okay, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. I had
Yeah.
a lot when I was offered the job. Well, even before being offered the job, interviewing for the job, I felt a lot of peace. Like, I think this is my next step.
Mm.
And again, I knew it wasn't the end goal because of my experience of the Lord calling me to worship ministry specifically and just
Yeah.
falling in love with music and with worship. I knew that I wanted to do that eventually, but I was like, I still see benefit to being here, however long the season is. And I didn't put any type of timestamp on it. There was when I was in the job, like it was hard sometimes, feeling like, am I making a difference? Is this,
Yeah.
and just questioning, like even though I had that piece, questioning, God, is this where you want me to be? Is this where I'm supposed to be?
Right.
And then I was volunteering at a church on their worship team at the time, and that was great, but it was also hard of like, okay, well, I don't want to overstep, and like I'm not the
Yeah.
leader here, and I want to be submissive to the actual worship pastor that's at
Right.
this church. And, I was scheduled, I don't know, once a month or something. And so I just had this like, I'm ready to go. Like, I want to be the one working at a church and like
Right.
being overseeing the ministry. But it was another one of those not yet. And
Yeah.
then eventually I was offered a different position and it wasn't a church. And then here we are today, where being, I am the worship pastor at the local church. I think I would just speak to that and say, you know, it I always wanted to be open to where the Lord was leading
Mm.
me, and
Yeah.
there was that element of trust of like, okay, you've promised me one thing, but I feel the peace that you're leading me here. And again, it doesn't really
Mm.
connect or make sense, but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna trust that you're gonna use it and that you're in it.
Yeah.
And I always even still like I always want to be open to opportunities that the Lord has for me, even if it's not something that's necessarily on my radar. Like you just never
Right.
know
It's good.
what from the experiences, from the people that you meet, from the skills of the
Yep.
job. Like I have implemented things that I learned in that job to my job today, like whether it be
Yeah.
from systems that I'm using, like administrative systems, or it taught me how to network and meet different people. And for me, that was a big deal. Like I mentioned earlier, I was really, really shy when I was a kid. And so from
Mm,
the point where the Lord called me to ministry, like that didn't mean that I was just suddenly not shy and ready to like literally stand on a stage and sing. Like I was terrified. And it
wow.
took a long time, and I even still will get nervous sometimes, but it took a
Yeah.
long time of just the Lord kind of building my confidence, and
Yep.
it was hard for me to talk with people I didn't know, and,
Yeah.
so that initial job working at the network office, like, that was a great experience for me to, meet a lot of people that I wouldn't have met had I not had that job, and then just to
Yeah.
learn how to do ministry together and network with them,
Yeah.
and learn those skills. And those are things that I'm using today in my job, as well as that. Really, that job kind of sparked my heart for resourcing people and
Mm,
partnering local churches together, and the
yeah.
importance of that collaboration. And that
Yep.
has now, trickled down into my day job as a worship pastor, but
Yeah.
also the nonprofit that I'm leading with Creative Tides. So
Yes.
now I see how it's connected and it's been
Full
useful. But yeah, in the
circle.
moment, it was like, what am I doing? Even
Yeah.
as much as I loved
Yeah.
the job, I was like, still there were days where I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So
And I think that's so good too, because I think there's a lot of young people, and even myself included, like when I graduated college, or, you're done with whatever that next step is, and you think you're going to immediately step into what the Lord has. And oftentimes he's going to bring you through a process where it is a lot of, does this make sense? Or why do I feel like I'm getting further and not closer? But just like you've pinpointed, it's a lot of what he's preparing and building within you, and trusting that there is connections, there's opportunities, there's skills, there's character being developed, all to get you ready for that moment. Because if he puts you too soon, you don't have the necessary characteristics or skill sets or whatever it is, fill in the blank, to sustain you in that. Like the Lord doesn't want to just bring you to it, he wants to sustain you through it. And so I think that's really cool. And that was something simultaneously I was learning too of, okay, I'm going to serve someone else's vision until God gives me the vision for me. And it's knowing, okay, God has called me, and like you, like having those pictures, having those words spoken over your life, and there's glimpses of that in even the jobs that seem mundane or seem like they don't fit. Like you can kind of see it, and he's so kind and gracious during that, but just trusting that it's all going to come together. And I'm like, my path has not been just like this linear thing. I felt like I have gone all over and then some, and worked in areas where I'm like, okay, God, like I'm gonna trust you, but actually this is a little weird, but that's okay. That's okay. You keep me on my toes. I like that, but I don't like that. It's fine. So I just think, yeah, just trusting the Lord in the process of that. And it's cool because just like you were hinting at, you started this nonprofit, Creative Tides, which really has been kind of like spun out of like I would say a righteous frustration of wanting network opportunities for the local churches in that creative arts and the worship and the tech, of how do we come together and we encourage and we work together and we brainstorm. And I remember just getting to listen to you share about those things, and like, ah, this has to exist, or where is this? And now seeing you run with that is so awesome. So just take a little bit of time and share with us, what is Creative Tides? What's the heart behind it? And what does that look like right now? And where are you hoping to see it take off?
yeah. Yeah, so it was born out of, my own frustrations of
Yep.
I felt like in worship ministry specifically, there weren't a lot of resources beyond, "Hey, mega churches or whoever, buy my online course or come to this ginormous conference that's, halfway across the country." And then it's like, "Okay, cool, I could go to that conference and probably feel encouraged and maybe inspired to try different things, but I'm a face in a crowd of thousands." Or I could sign up for that online course and then it's just me on my computer. And again, maybe I'm learning something, but there's no lasting community in that.
Yeah.
And so when I started at my current church, um, I was like, I have people that are interested in learning different things, and I have people in my circle that could teach and facilitate those things. So why don't we just start facilitating workshops with these things? So I
Yeah.
brought in friends just in my own sphere. And as these friends started sharing on the topics of songwriting, how to run live sound, how to play guitar and like all the pedals and all of that, as they were sharing these things, I was like, these are just people in my sphere, but they are like experts in their craft. And it just
Mm.
kind of got me wondering, like, how many other churches just in my immediate area have these people who are like experts in their field, let alone like greater Portland, or you keep
Yeah.
rippling out from there. And so I started just setting up coffee meetings with local worship pastors and saying, "Hey, I kind of have this idea. What if we were to like put on a local conference, or what if we were to do this?" And just as I met with people and sort of started to filter down,
Yeah.
creative tides emerged. And the language of tides, like an ocean tide, the
Mm.
thought is, as we build partnerships together, as we come and we learn together, that would ripple out and impact the church, that it would ripple through churches and teams. But then our hope is that it would ripple out beyond the church walls, and that as
Wow.
we're resourcing local creatives, that we're holding a sound workshop, say we're holding a live sound and mixing workshop, and yeah, it's hosted at a church, but it's not churchy. We're not using Christianese.
Wow.
We're
That's
talking
cool.
about, we're teaching the practical of, here's how you EQ a band, here's how you add a compressor. Like, we're talking about those things. And then
Mm.
you have the sound guy who's volunteering on Sunday, but maybe you also have the sound guy who's working a gig on Saturday night at a bar downtown Portland. Like, that it would ripple out
Yeah.
and positively affect the community, that the church would be seen as an asset to the community as we're developing
That's good,
creatives.
Ashlee.
And then the other hope is that these events could be evangelistic in nature. Of, again, we're meeting in a church, but we're talking like a really specific niche topic: sound, guitar, vocal technique, and training. And our hope is that maybe people who have left the church, or who have had a bad experience, or never been a part of the church, that they would feel like they could come to that workshop. And yeah, it's at a church and there's a bunch of Christians there, but we're talking about this specific topic. But our hope
Yeah.
is that as they're in the room and as they build those connections, that would be redemptive in their story of their relationship with Jesus, or their
Yeah.
relationship with the local church, and that these events would serve kind of twofold of resourcing, yes, and training and teaching and building community, but ultimately, bringing people into collaboration because of our relationship with
Yeah.
Jesus and our function as the church, Big C church. And so,
Yeah.
so what that's looked like so far is we do quarterly workshops on different topics. We've also started an event that we're calling Open Floor, that meets a few times a year, and that's focused around a really niche, probably instrument, so electric guitar or synth keys, and that's for like building community. Like, hey, come bring your pedal board, bring your electric guitar rig. The floor is yours to share. We're just going to learn from each other. So we have that type of event, and then we're
Wow.
also doing cohorts. So we've had a songwriting cohort, and then I'm exploring the idea of like a creative writing with a local author creative writing cohort, where that would be
Mm.
honing specific skill. But the heart with all of them is offering resources and training from the local expert, so that you can like swap numbers afterwards and stay in contact with that person. And
Wow.
maybe if it is a sound workshop and you have a few sound engineers in your area teaching, maybe that person could come to your church or come to your gig at the bar on Saturday night and like give you real time pointers. Like, there's that
Yeah.
connection in the community building, as well as churches bringing teams, worship pastors bringing teams, and meeting and it's not denominational, it's open for anybody. So
That's so cool.
churches coming together and collaborating together, and just also fighting this, we don't need to be territorial. It's all, we are in God's kingdom. And even
Yep.
if we, have differences maybe on nuanced things, like if you believe that Jesus is Lord and Savior and he went to the cross and died for our sins and he's coming, like if you have those basics and we can stack hands on those things, like it sort of doesn't really matter what denomination
Yeah.
you are. Like,
Yeah.
why can't we like link arms and help each other? And
Yep.
maybe we're not linking arms on every single event because of those nuanced differences, but we still love Jesus and we can support each other. And
Yeah.
so we don't need to be territorial of don't talk to my worship team
Mm.
members, like, don't poach them. It's like, well,
Yeah.
no, you had your drummer call out Saturday night before Sunday. Like, let me help you. Let me reach out to drummers on my team. Like,
Wow.
let's share resources. And so
Wow.
that's what it is and what we do. And yeah, it's been really exciting. I launched it February of 2024. And so it's been really exciting to see it grow a little over a year. And I don't know where it's going to go. I hope that the Lord takes it and continues to grow it. And
Yep.
I think it'd be cool to have like, I'm based in outside of the Portland area. But I think it'd be cool to have like Creative Tides Seattle, Creative Tides Austin, like to have different
Yep.
maybe branches
Yep.
of it where we're kind of
Yeah.
building this model that people could then take in their local context because
Yeah.
that's what it's all about
Yeah. I
is
love
that
that.
local community. So yeah.
It's so fun hearing you talk about it because it's such a good idea. It's such a good opportunity. I see that need across the board, and just you've thought through so many different barriers that could exist and have quickly debunked each one of, yep, we thought about that here. This is how we do it. And I just love that. And it hits at that crave of this was something even from your own life of wanting that. Cause I can think about you can go to these mega churches and it's not a bad thing, but it's like when you come back to your own local church, do you even have the budget to implement what was, you were seeing, or do you have the resources or the people? And it is difficult, to find people that are willing to give up the time to come and play an instrument or sing and lead. And especially when you're at churches that have more than one service, like it's a lot, and it can become just a stressor and feel very lonely, even as like the worship director or pastor at the church of there's this expectation, but it's so much recruitment and building teams. And so I love that you're bringing an opportunity to link arms and say, hey, you may feel alone, but you're not alone. We're all doing this together. And I think you hit at this before, but oftentimes that area in the church can sometimes become a very isolated area where there isn't a lot of bridge connection. You can see it in youth ministry, or maybe your, senior pastors getting together, or other discipleship pastors, or whatever it is. But sometimes with worship, it does become very territorial of don't take the people from our church because we need them, so I love that. I think it's so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
I think the
I will
other,
make sure to link it.
yes, please do. I think the other piece too is we're about how can we resource you for what's needed in your context.
Mm,
That's one thing with, like you mentioned, the megachurch conference is great and it's super fun.
yeah.
But sometimes what we forget is those are paid musicians where that's their full-time gig and they're playing
Yep.
together all the time.
Yep.
And they also have people who are on staff for all the individual things like lighting and
Yeah.
sound and all of that. And so you go to those conferences and you're like, oh, this is great. I want us to look or sound like this. But then your local context, it's people who are volunteers that have their own full-time jobs and families.
Yep.
And, it's enough of a commitment to ask, can you come to a midweek rehearsal and then play all however many services on Sunday? And so with
Yeah.
Creative Tides, we want to offer resources. And even with what we're offering, like we just did one on the topic of lighting, like stage design, lighting, and I said up front, I said, hey, we want to give you different options. We want to show you different types of lights and how you can implement those if you're building out a lighting
That's
rig,
cool.
if you want to like program it to worship songs or however you want to do. But the point though is that it doesn't look like this where we were. I said the point is to
Mm,
give you resources for you to take for what's needed in your context. And
that's good.
I never want people to feel like, oh, well, I could never do that because of a budget or because of how many volunteers. Maybe your church doesn't need moving lights or whatever it might be. Maybe your church doesn't need an electric
Yeah.
guitar on team. What is what does your congregation need? What is the heartbeat and the pulse of
Yep.
your church? What sermon series or scripture are you resonating in? Where's the
Yep.
Lord moving your specific congregation and how can we
It's
give
good.
resources to platform and elevate that and not just say, hey, here's what it should look like, but you're probably never going to get there. No, we're not trying
Yeah.
to be fill in the blank, elevation worship. My church it's a 100-year-old building that comfortably seats 250 people, and we're in a town of 25,000. Like, my team is fantastic, but we are never going to be elevation worship. Like,
Yeah.
and so how do we, take those songs, or we take that model, but then we change it to what we need and who we are, and coming from our skill sets, like, rather than
That's
ask
good.
my electric guitar player, hey, figure out how to play all electric guitar parts on this track, because some worship songs have that many. What are you
Yep.
hearing, and what is your skill set, not only in what you're capable of, but what is a strength that you could bring to play a part that would
That's
fit
good.
with our sound.
Yeah.
So that's a really big
Yeah.
piece of it too, and that's why we really like to stay, focused on the local context and bringing in people here locally to teach, so
Yeah.
that you can have ongoing relationship with them, and it's not, here's what it should look like good luck. No,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
what do you need it
No,
to look
so
like, and
good.
how can we help you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ashlee, you're incredible. This is why we had you on the podcast today. Seriously, you have touched on so many different areas, and I just love seeing the theme of your own journey of just from where we started on this episode of just hearing like how you were called at 5 years old and didn't even know it, had this experience when you're in high school at a camp, to now you are fast forward through all the waiting, the difficulties, the challenges with the physical, the mental struggles, and now here you are getting to come alongside others and help creating that space that's curated for their church, what God's called them to. And it's just, the Lord has done so much in and through you. So just thank you for your faithfulness, your obedience, and we are just so honored to have you on the podcast today. And so I'm going to tell the girls that if you like today's episode, which how could you not have, make sure to share it with the girls in your world, and get together, talk further on what does this look like to wait well of the, it may not be now, but it's going to happen later. What do you do in those wrestling points? So share with people in your world. I'm going to link below Creative Tides, that if you are part of a local church or you're in the area and you're like, man, that would be so cool just to see, or go peruse the social media to see what they're about. I'll link that below as well. And so girls, we are so glad that you were here listening this episode. Ashlee, thank you for being here with us. And girls, we will see you back here again soon. Bye.